Right, welcome to the second part of this mini-series about job order costing system, and in this video we're going to talk about cost of materials. So the first thing we need to know is that there is this document called the material ledger, which is basically where we're going to manage all the materials we have. And the material ledger is important because, well, basically it will represent in different inventories that we have. So the material ledger is a general ledger that we use to control our account of materials and our costs. And we're going to have a separate account or a separate table for each one of the materials we have. Now, as you probably realize, for our business about glove purses, we're going to keep it simple and we just have two direct materials. So this material ledger has two possibilities. This inventory has two possibilities. It can increase or it can decrease. So the balance can increase, in other words, can debit, if we receive materials or we buy materials. So we're going to use documents like receiving reports, which will be supported by a supplier invoice as well. The decrease of inventories is normally due to material requisitions. Okay, so each department or each job manager will request different materials in order to complete their job, and therefore those are the documents we're going to use to reduce the inventory that we have of each material. But I will show you the example in just a little bit. So the material ledger is the very first document that I'm going to show you in a series of different documents we're going to go work through this mini series. Okay, all of them are relatively simple, don't worry, and the material ledger looks like this. Okay, so the only information I need you to know for now is that on the material ledger we would have one table like this for each material we have. Since in this business we only have two materials, we only have two tables, leather and cloth. Okay, so let me show you now how to actually fill this table to complete it with all the numbers that you see over here, okay, in order for you to understand what is the process of managing our material account ledger. So here's our material account ledger empty, and we only gonna have two because for this business that I'm using as an example, we only have two different materials. Okay, so in order to start, the first thing is we need to add the materials themselves. Okay, so let me just zoom in a little bit to make it easier. There you go. So we're gonna use the materials themselves, and those two materials for our example are leather, and the other one is cloth. All right, the filling cloth. Then the next thing we can point out is there's normally a thing in this box over here, and it's called order point, and basically this means at what quantity that if we reach that quantity we should order more. Now we could do a whole series of videos about this, about inventory management, but for now I'm going to keep it simple, and I'm going to say that if I ever reach a quantity, for example, of 1,000 square meters, that I would reorder more. I would order more quantity. And for the cloth, let's imagine we're going to do the same thing. All right, so then we're going to see on this table there are three main components: received component, issued component, and the balance component. Actually, we're going to start with the balance. All right, now the balance is basically all the materials that you have initially and that you start the month or the period with. Now let's assume that this is a completely new business, so actually on the 1st of January, all right, so normally we start by placing the date, and then we say how much quantity do I have initially. In this case it's going to be 0, unit price 0, and the amount therefore I have 0. Obviously typically we would just not place this at all since we're just starting, so I'm going to delete it. Okay, it's just to give an example how to fill it. Now let's imagine actually that I start, it's a new business or a new year. Okay, I start the year. Let's imagine I have a total of 500 different 500 square meters of leather, sorry, and the unit price of those square meters is $5 per square meter. Okay, that's how much I purchased these 500, or how much they are valued. So 500 times 5, how would I calculate my total amount? Well, that's easy. All you have to do is multiply the quantity, and you multiply it by the unit price. Okay, and then there you go. So my total inventory right now is worth $2,500. Okay, then obviously this 500 is less than 1,000, so we reorder more, and whenever we order more and whenever we receive the materials we requested, what we're gonna do is we're gonna register it over here on the receive part. Now, the first column is called the reference, and basically the reference would be the name of the supplier and the invoice number that you got this from. Now, let's imagine that I got this from supplier A, and the invoice number for this one was 0001, for example. Okay. Now, on this specific shipment, I received 2,000 square meters of leather, and the total price was 10,000. Okay, so 10,000. Or let's imagine, actually, let's make it a little bit more interesting, 12,000. Okay, 12,000. So, what would I do next? Well, then I would have to go over here, right? And I have to readjust my balance. Now, here there's going to be many options, but just letting you know, we're going to be using a system of inventory called the average price, which is, in my opinion, the easiest one to do. And for the sake of this exercise, we're going to start simple. So we're going to stick with the average price throughout the whole system. Okay. Now let's imagine that we received this shipment on the 2nd of January. Okay. Received it on the 2nd of January. And now I'm going to calculate my quantity. I have 500 before and I bought 2,000. So that means now I'm going to have 2,500. The next thing I'm going to do is not the unit price, but rather I will do the amount. Okay, so my inventory was worth 2,500, and now I'm going to add the total bill of the new shipment that I just got. Okay, this 12,000, and there you go. Okay, so now I have 14,500 of dollars of leather in inventory. Now I have 14,500 and I have 2,500 square meters. Now the question is, how much is the unit price? Now, to calculate that unit price, all you need to do is the amount that you have, and then you divide it by the quantity. So again, the amount divided by the quantity. And you would get, in this case, actually, this would be wrong. Let me add a couple of zeros here. So my average price of 1 square meter of leather is $5.80. $5.80. Now the good news is we only gonna have to figure out the unit price when we buy materials. When we issue, the unit price will not change, so that's a good news. So as of the 2nd of January, I have 2,500 square meters of leather worth $5.80 per square meter for the total inventory value of leather of 14,500. And this is how we add, okay, this is how we add materials that we received. Now, what happens when we actually issue them? Now, let's imagine you're working on a job, and the responsible for that job, the supervisor, he comes in and he actually requests 500 square meters of leather to be able to complete that job. Okay, so he will create a requisition material, which I'm going to show later, but let's imagine for now, let's call this requisition material, for example, 006, which is normally the job order, and this is requisition 001 for that job. Okay, so, and he requested 500 square meters. Now, 500 square meters, how much is that value? Well, that's going to be value 500 square meters, and then I'm going to multiply by the unit price that is over here on my balance. If he wants 500 square meters, I'm going to have to go and get it from here, from this 2,500. And I know that each one of these square meters is worth $5.80. So by requesting 500 square meters of leather, he actually requested a total of $2,900 worth of inventory. Okay, so now I have to recalculate my balance. Now, to keep it simple, let's imagine that this is also on the same day. This is happening on the same day, the 2nd of actually, let's put it on the 3rd. It happened the day after, just to make it simpler. And now we have to calculate our new inventories. So I had 2,500. How much do I have now? Okay, so if I had 2,500 and I got a requisition of 500 square meters, now I only have 2,000, right? Then the next step we do is we copy the unit price from before. The unit price from before does not change. Now it's 580. And the total amount that I have, here you have two options, okay? Let me show you both options. Either you do this quantity we just did multiplied by unit price, and in this case it shows that now in terms of inventory I only have 11,600. Or the other option simply that you can do is you go to the previous amount and you take out how much you gave away. And now you know that you have 11,600. 600, so same value. All right, so this is how we do the material account ledger for one of our materials, for leather. Okay, now let me show you as well, for example, same thing would be for the let me show you again another example, but now let's do for the cloth. Again, on the 1st of January, let's imagine in terms of this cloth, the filling cloth, I actually have 1,500 square meters, and the unit price of this is actually 1.5. Okay, so let me just add here, there, 1.5. So that means I actually have, in terms of cloth, my total inventory is 1,500, and then I multiply by 1.5. So I have $2,250 of cloth. All right. Now, because the amount I have is still good, all right, I still not below 1,000, so I can still go. And what will happen now, I'm going to show you, but I'm going to show you anyway the same process. Let's start with a purchase. Now, this cloth comes from supplier B, invoice 0001, okay? And let's imagine that I purchase 3,000 square meters of cloth more. Now, the amount of this was $6,000, for example, all right? So this bill, the total bill was for 3,000 square meters was $6,000. And now I'm gonna update my balance. Now, I received this on the 2nd of January, all right? And I'm going to calculate my new quantity. So if I had 1,500 before and I just bought 3,000, now I have 4,500. If the total amount that I had before was 2,250 and now I received another inventory worth 6,000, now my total inventory is 8,250. So how much is worth each square meter of my cloth? Well, like I said before, all you have to do is the total amount here, 8,250, divided by the quantity, 4,500. And I see that each square meter of my cloth is worth around $1.83. Now, once again, job 006 has made a new requisition as well for cloth, and this is requisition 2, because the requisition 1 was for leather, okay? And they actually requested, for example, although, to be honest, you can have the same requisition requesting 2 different materials, completely normal, don't worry. But I'm just separating it here to make it simple. All right, so in this requisition that he had, he asked for 1,000 square meters of, okay, 1,000 square meters of leather. And on that 1,000 square meters of leather, how much is it worth? Well, once again, we're gonna do 1,000, and we're gonna multiply it by this 183 that we have there. So with this 1,000 square meters, he actually requested $1,833 worth of inventory. And this happened on the 3rd of January, okay, same day. And so now I have to calculate my new balance. So if I had 4,500 square meters of cloth, and he requested 1,000, now I only have 3,500. The unit price stays always the same, okay, 183 there, because it's just an issue. And the total amount that I have now would be the 3,500 multiplied by the 183. So now my inventory of cloth is actually worth 6,417. And this is how we do our material ledger. This is how we manage the different materials that we have on our business. While we did the ledger, we spoke about material requisition. So actually, what is material requisition? Basically, every time someone needs for a job or for one of the batches of products you are creating, every time they need materials, okay, the storeroom will have to release the materials to use in the manufacturing when this requisition form is provided or received and approved. Okay, so the material requisition for each job will serve as a basis for recording how much materials have been used in each form, and therefore this document is extremely important, as you probably realize. So this is the requisition form that we normally use, okay, and as you can see, it's a very simple document. Just says material requisition at the top, then we have to put the reference, okay. Normally this is an automatically generated number, but in this case I'm going to use the 2 requisitions that I showed you before. Job reference is about what job it is. On the description over here we place the material we are requesting, then we place here the quantity that we want and the unit price. In order to get unit price, You have to go to the material ledger or to the warehouse manager and ask him how much is the unit price of each one of the things that you are requesting, and then it will calculate the total amount and the total value of that requisition. Okay, so this is the components of a requisition form. Now I'm going to show you just in the next part is how to actually fill it step by step. So let's fill our requisition forms according to the examples I just gave before. Okay, so first of all, we're gonna start by filling our requisition reference, and like you remember, this is requisition reference 006. We're gonna start with requisition 001. Okay, so then we have to place our job reference, which in this case is job 006. Okay, oops, I have to change here one quick thing, otherwise it's not gonna show. So I want to show it as plain text. There you go. Actually gonna do the same thing here, but later. All right, and for the first one, we requested leather. All right, with a quantity, let's go check. I don't remember. I requested 500 square meters. There you go. So 500 square meters, and the value of that, the unit price is actually 580. So the unit price is actually 580. There you go. So like I said, I requested $2,900 of leather. Let's see if it's correct. Yes, it is. Perfect. So remember, these two numbers over here have to match. Okay. And for this requisition, it was a total of 2,900. The second requisition, same thing. All right. So in this case, it was requisition 006002. All right. This one was for the filling. Okay. For the cloth over here. And this one is again for job 006. Now, in this case, I'm requesting cloth, right? And I requested a quantity of 1,000, and the unit price of it was 183. Okay, so 1.83, 1,830. Okay, now if you notice here, 1,830, here I have 1,833. So I actually can go here, all right, and just change it for 1,833. Now it's correct. Okay, and this was my requisition, and this is how we fill the requisition. As you can see, it's very simple. All right, and it's very important that the numbers indeed match. Okay, that the number in the requisition form is matching as well the number we got over here. All right, and this is how we do the requisition. The third document I want to show you today is called the job cost sheets. Okay, and this is basically an Excel file or a table where we're gonna add all the costs related to a job, and we need it now because now that we finish calculating the cost of material for the job, we're gonna have to add it later on to our job cost sheet so that we know how much is the component of direct material cost. So for direct materials, the quantities and the amounts from the material requisition will be posted on the job cost sheet, and the job cost sheet will make up the work in process subsidiary ledger. In other words, in this document, we're going to register the value of my work in process for this specific job. So as you can see, it's also a very important document because it allows me to know how much money I have already spent creating a specific job. So there's many different forms of job cost sheet. I'm just using a very simple one here, and basically the information we would have is the job code, what is the product we're manufacturing, the quantity of that product, any remaining balance from previous months that we already incorporated in terms of costs, how much have we spent so far in this month in terms of materials, in terms of labor, in terms of factory overhead, and obviously our total. And as well, we would have our cost per unit. But since this job is not completed yet, we should not calculate that. So a job cost sheet would look something like this, and I'm going to show throughout the videos how to actually go through the whole process of completing it. So let me just show you now how to do our job cost sheet. Okay, so right now, as you can see, it's empty and it has different components, and I tend to make it quite simple. All right, first of all, we start by filling the code, and this was job 006. Okay, once again, I forgot to format it here as plain text. There we go. Job 006, and the product was, let's imagine the product was the green purses. Okay, the quantity I'm producing is 1,500. All right, 1,500 of green purses. Okay, and then we would have here a balance in case we already have some, but for now we're not going to fill that, because for now we're just going to focus on the direct material. Okay, and for the direct material I need to calculate the total cost of materials that was needed. How do I get that? Well, I'll have to go to my material requisition form, and actually for job 006 what I see is that I only requested materials twice. Okay, so I requested here for job 006 I requested this first document and then this second document. So what I have to do is, for job 006, the total cost of these materials, all right? So I would add over there, and I put the direct material cost over here, all right? Now this is a very simplistic form, could be much more complicated obviously, but I'm gonna keep it simple. So for now, all I need to know is, okay, for job 006, what was the total cost of materials? And I see that it was 1,833 and 2,900, so I have 4,333. Okay, so I'm gonna go to here to my direct material cost, and actually I'm gonna make it easier. I'm gonna put the sign equal, then I'm gonna go to my material requisition, and I'm just gonna add these two numbers, and there it is. This is how we transfer that cost to our job cost sheet. Now we could make it much more details here and, for example, add the specific requisitions, the quantities, and so on, but I'm just going to keep the values for now because I believe that's the important part. And then you could make it always add more details, obviously, but let's keep it simple for now. And this is how we transfer the costs and how we calculate the direct material cost for each one of our jobs, in this case for job 006. Alright, so in this video we went through the cost of materials, we learned how to make acquisitions, how to manage our inventories of raw materials, how to make requisitions, how to calculate those costs and transfer those costs to our job cost sheet. And with that we learned how to manage the component of our material cost in our job cost system. Thank you very much for watching the video. Let me know if you have questions, and I'll see you on the next video of this mini series.